Hey everybody! Well, welcome to Sunday night. I'm sorry to have had to delay tonight's meeting tonight a little bit. We had a family gathering, and so please forgive our having a little later time tonight. But we still have a great time in store for you, and we're on step 9. So hang in there. We're moving right along. Step 9 is about making direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And so in step 8, we made a list of people that we had harmed. And in step 9, we're actually making amends to the people on the list. So wherever you are, I know I keep saying this, but I really mean this. It's okay wherever you are in the process. If you're just listening in and learning, that is perfectly fine. It's a part of the process to begin to understand what these steps are about, and that's a fine thing to do, is just take it in, and then eventually when you're ready you'll do them. And so try not to run away from this. I know this is a tough step, but it's a really important one. I wanted to start by using an example, and this is, I'm thinking of one in my mind, but I have seen this happen multiple times. So Susan, I'll say her name is, she is somebody who had been doing well in recovery and was moving along and following through with her recovery process and doing her steps. And she was feeling nervous about the 9th step, and just looking at her list, and there were some things that were coming up for her that were making her feel like she just didn't really feel like facing some of the people that she knew she had some unresolved issues with. And she started feeling afraid and actually pretty anxious. And so what happened, instead of finding help to go forward, she got so anxious that she decided that she was going to drop the ball here, and she decided that she wasn't going to finish her step work. And this is a really pivotal point. In the AA literature, it really talks about after this step is where the freedom comes, and we're just getting done sort of the last really hard part of the working steps of the 12 steps. And so, it's understandable to be afraid, especially if there's things that come up that are scary to face. And so running away from when you feel afraid is not a good choice, but figuring out what to do about that fear is the next thing. And so in this case, as I've seen in many situations, slowly but surely, if you don't go forward, you start to go backward, and that's often what you see. And so Susan stopped doing the steps and then slowly started pulling back from doing the other kinds of recovery things that she was doing, and before you know it, she was back into the food. And so instead of going forward and really breaking free, and giving herself the time and the patience to try to figure out what to do about the scary parts of this, which I think it's better to go slow. It's better to use support. It's better to kind of figure out what you need to get through than it is to stop and run. And so it is normal to get anxious about some of these, and it's normal also to feel like, why do I have to do this, and to kind of try to quit. So I really think it's important when you get to this step to take your list that you made in step 8 and make sure that you go over it so that you are sure that you're making the right amends. And some amends will be easy. It will be obvious and easy, and you'll want to go straight ahead and just straighten some things out. And actually, I think for many people, once just getting into recovery, that's the beginning of making amends right there, because we're already starting to be healthier, better people. Our moods are better. We're more engaged. Our attitudes are better. And that's, in a sense, what we're going to talk about, a living amends. When you become a healthier, better person, that's like a living amends. You're easier to live with. And much better than when we're in the throes of our addictions. So, but that is the beginning of change. But some people you just know, like there's things that you just need to straighten up. Say, apologize for withdrawing, or apologize for eating in secret or lying about food, or making things right about the way you've not gone to things that were important, or been involved with your family in important ways. And so these are things to talk to your family or your friends, and people who that you have. I have many clients I've worked with, and people I've known who have horrible guilt over missing important things that they just missed because they were hiding or felt guilty from the food and their weight, and they just weren't engaged in their life. And so these are the sort of things that we might need to make amends for. There are some things that are going to be hard to make amends for. Like, I've had a lot of people have stories from early on when they do their timelines from back in the early days of their food addiction, especially as kids, stealing food or stealing money for food, and then maybe a place they worked, or some people even were shoplifting, and these are kind of things that are a little challenging, because you might not still know the people, and then two, it might be kind of a really threatening ordeal to try to figure out how to manage that. So thinking through with a support person, what is the right way to manage some of these things? Sometimes you give a charitable gift. Some is, where you stole from, and maybe, I've actually had people go to the store, a grocery store where they were stealing from, and they just gave money and with an apology. It was like a really hard thing to do, but these are the sort of things that we need to do. It's just getting rid of baggage and getting rid of guilt. Remembering all the time that what this step is saying is that you need to be careful of a couple of things. One is, if it's going to send you back to the food, we're not ready for this. If your anxiety level is so high that you're going to eat over it, then slow down and take the steps that you feel like you can take, and wait on the amends that you need to kind of get yourself together for. Just don't quit because you're feeling nervous. And so, if there's things that are more complicated, then we'll just work it through with your support team, and they'll help you. Sometimes it's better not. Like in some situations, a disclosure could ruin your family. It could ruin your job and ruin your family's income. It could ruin another family, if, like, let's say there was an affair. And so you really do need to be careful at not clearing your own conscience at someone else's expense. And so it's very important to really think through the amends carefully, but not run away from this. And so, I want to talk a little bit more about the living amends. If we realize that, I think what we're doing in these steps as we go through it the first time around is we're learning, like we're cleaning house really like the first time around, but then we're going to make a lifestyle of this. And I really like the idea of living amends. And I think this process is so painful and difficult, like having to go back. No, most of us don't really like apologizing or having to humble ourselves and say, we're sorry, or have to confess when we've messed up. And I think, in a sense, to realize, to honor our recovery and know that the only way to really have good recovery, we have to be honest. We have to be brutally honest, and we have to be willing to live a life, an ethical life. We can't let ourselves be people who lie and steal and live dishonestly in the world, and have unhealthy connections and just leave things unsettled with people. And so, in a sense, to realize that I know for myself, one of the great lessons as in going through this was like it was so painful. I would never want to have to go through that. It sort of forced me to change my ways, and knowing that I'd rather not make the mistakes than have to go back and clean them up. And, in a way, it changed me forever. And I feel like that's a really powerful thing if you really start thinking about how, really just seeing how this can change you to help you to be more how I think God wants us to be. I think he doesn't want us to be walking around feeling guilty and ashamed for dishonesty, even small little white lies and little ways that we just keep things that need to be dealt with. And so, nobody's perfect. We're never going to be perfect. We're going to have struggles with people. We're going to hold things in our heart towards people, and we're going to need to keep on working on it as we get into the next set of steps, 10, 11, and 12, which are the maintenance steps. We'll be talking about how you kind of keep this as a lifestyle. But we're setting the stage for a lifestyle of not letting your life be one where you get into tangles and then just leave baggage building up and trouble building up in your life. And again, I say this all the time, but all the troubles that we leave unfinished are the baggage that leads to the fuel for the food abuse. And so we're getting rid of the fuel, and we're cleaning our hearts and our souls up and our relationships up so that we can have less reason emotionally to use food. And so I think that I have covered everything. I think, there are some things I guess I didn't cover. One is people who have died. I believe in therapeutic letters. I think that if there's somebody that you feel like you have unfinished business with, you can write a letter to someone and tell them all about what you would tell them if they were here. And, maybe share that with a friend or a counselor or your sponsor. That's a really helpful tool. Also, if there's someone that is just so awful and abusive, like I wouldn't recommend necessarily visiting a person who, like if somebody, raped you or sexually abused you, I don't think you should go to a person like that. But you might need to do something to get out your feelings. And so I think, it's better to do something than nothing. And so I think it's coming up with a creative therapeutic tool for resolving things rather than saying, I can't because I will never, I would never talk to that person. And it may be that you wouldn't. But you still need to have your heart cleaned out from the garbage that's there, that the resentments or the bitterness or the hurts that have never been resolved. And so anyway, so I think that let's see, dying people who have been really abusive. I think sometimes too, it's just also dealing with I really want to say, just in terms of depending on God, like remembering that a lot of times there are people that we don't really feel like deserve our amends. I certainly felt that way. And probably the most important amends I had to deal with was in a relationship with my mother, actually. And I mean, I didn't make amends to her because I felt like she deserved it. I did it because I deserved it, because I deserved to be healed, and because in my relationship with God, I deserved to be right with God and not have baggage that was destroying me. And so I do think that's a big thing that people stumble around, is feeling like, well, I'm not going to go deal with that person. They're blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure in many cases we can say that is often true, that maybe there is a person who doesn't deserve the time of day from us. But we do not deserve to carry, unresolved in our hearts. And so that's why we're doing this. We're doing it for healing in our own hearts. And it's not about the other person. It's really about our own heart and soul and spirit and our relationship with God. And God does want us to forgive. He forgave us, and he calls us to forgive. And I don't believe there's any leeway there in the way I read the scriptures. I think he always calls us to have our relationships right, at least in our heart, as best as possible. I believe that is his will. And so to end, with a couple of scriptures. So Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. I'm just reading from the book, the Satisfied Workbook. And, you know, I always have scriptures at the end for meditation, and I definitely encourage you to, you know, write these down and meditate on some of these. Be kind to one another, Ephesians 4:32. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you. And I'll just read one more. Proverbs 10:12. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offenses. And isn't that so true? So I pray the Lord will direct you and every single person that you have on your list. And I encourage you to get help with this. Don't try to do it by yourself. Let people help you. Let people hold your hand, and don't avoid this. Just keep going forward, and you know, take your time and get better. God is with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. And I'm excited to see some of you here. If I'm here for questions, and I'm gonna, I guess I can see you here, and I'm so happy that you're here, but I never can see anybody's questions. I don't see anybody texting, but if you guys have any questions, I'm here, and I'll stick around on the group afterwards. So if you want to talk a little bit, I'm here, and I'm all through the week. I'm always kind of keeping an eye on things with the group. So if people want to touch base and talk about these things, I really encourage that we talk together about these things. God bless you. Have a great week.